Well, Danny, thanks very much for coming in today to speak to us about the partnership between CEDR and Sanofi. Before we get going, could you just tell us a little bit about you, your background, and your role at Sanofi?
Sure, yeah, thanks. So first off, thanks for inviting me in. It's been an exciting few months for us working alongside CEDR to launch the project, obviously, that we're going to talk about. But from my perspective, I've been with Sanofi now for 2.5 years. I came to the company under the advice of the current Chief Compliance Officer, who was one of my previous colleagues at a previous company. Spoke really highly of it, said, we have this new role for you. So I said, okay, what is it? And he said, it's Global Head of Organisational Justice and Smart Assurance. And I said, and that means? And he broke it down and explained it and explained what it entails, which is internal investigations, our global monitoring program, our global speak up program, the oversight for corrective and disciplinary action, and the Ombuds office, which wasn't a thing then, but they were talking about what else could be included. So I came in to take that role. Prior to that, I was with another pharmaceutical company called Amgen in the US for 7 years. Then I had 3 years at BP Oil International in a business integrity team. And then prior to that, I had 20 years in law enforcement in the UK, various kind of investigations roles, 8 years in London and 12 years outside of London.
Yeah, amazing, thank you. And so look, I mean, broad remit now at Sanofi, a lot of big business challenges as well. So where does the work that you've been doing with CEDR, the building the capacity and capability in the ethics, business integrity, compliance, speak up, where does that fit into the wider business strategy?
When the CEO, Paul Hudson, who's been a real support for us on this and backed the Ombuds program from the start, when he came in, they set up with Julian a what they call EBI 2026 strategy. And it was linked from a company strategy to a ethics and compliance strategy, but that was linked into the cultural transformation of the company. So it wasn't just about changing ethics and business integrity, it was about changing the way the company thinks, operates, behaves, and acts across all the spectrum, so not just linked to compliance. So part of that was what they call our play to win strategy, which is very focused on taking risks, what they call thoughtful risk taking, pushing the boundaries, but testing and challenging current working practices to maximise the return that we can make in terms of performance and obviously ultimately what we can do for patients. So that was kind of where the two linked in, and part of that environment and the cultural transformation was, okay, how do employees feel about the company? Do they feel it's fair, consistent, balanced, and equitable? So that was where the organisational justice piece started to take shape.
And what were the specific capacity or capabilities that you were looking to build in order to meet those broader business objectives?
The areas of organisational justice that had to be built are there primarily because of what the goal is of organisational justice. And the aim is, do employees feel that they are working for a company that is fair, consistent, balanced, equitable, and diverse? So what we did, or what I had to do, was look at where could I find opportunities to show employees that the company was that way. So by having an independent investigations team means if someone raises a concern or we find an issue, it's handled in a fair, consistent way, a high level of standard, and can report independently to the company about what those issues are without any bias or attachment. The monitoring does a very similar thing. We're using a lot of technology with the monitoring at the moment, AI solutions, to be better and quicker and bigger at what we monitor and how we check. Again, finding things to be able to say to employees, yeah, we've found concerns in monitoring, we've found where our policies could be improved, where our processes could be improved, and we're making those improvements to help you simplify processes, avoid duplication, all those kind of things that we've been able to identify in monitoring. Speak Up's the big one, for me it is, and I think that's very closely linked to the Ombuds office, because one of the main goals of organisational justice is, do you feel as an employee you have a voice? Okay, yes. Do you speak up? If you speak up, are you heard? Does the company listen? Does the company take action? Do they share what the outcomes are of the action that's taken and share that learning across the organisation? Prior to coming into Sanofi, I think there was a real mentality, and probably a lot of it in other organisations, I've seen it in previous companies, that Speak Up is linked to reporting misconduct. And that fundamentally was the thing we changed around the transition, because we created what we call our Speak Up universe, which is centralised around psychological safety, intent and integrity. And that is the kind of core part about how an employee can feel safe to speak up in a company about sharing ideas, giving feedback, challenging the status quo, improving the ways of working, and then raising concerns. So all those are kind of pivoted around that central concept of psychological safety, integrity and intent. And that's the bit that we're really trying to push to make employees know that they do have a voice, they can speak up, they are heard and listened to, and the company will take action.
But it's great to see that duality. It's obviously about the wrongdoing, but there's also about the psychological safety element of people coming forward to contribute. When you were looking at building out this speak up capabilities, the psychological safety, the Ombuds office, what were some of the challenges that you envisaged with embarking on that journey?
Yeah, mindset shift. I mean, I think it's just human nature, right? Again, in all the organisations I've been at in the past, when everyone talks about speaking up, like I said a couple of minutes ago, it's about reporting misconduct. Something's gone wrong, something bad has happened. And what the big challenge was, and it still is, we're not there yet, we've made some real leaps and progress, but it's really to get employees to understand that changing the culture in a company means not just when there's a problem, speak up about it. Because if you speak up sooner, quite often you can avoid something becoming an issue. If you see a way that a process can be improved, or you have an idea about how we're operating as a business or in your part of the organisation, you need to come forward. We want you to come forward. We're encouraging you to come forward because, with the best will in the world, our executive team don't have all the ideas. They don't have all the solutions. We've got 90-odd thousand people in the company. Put 90,000 brains together, it's a big capacity. And there will be ideas in amongst those people now that they haven't shared yet that will help us become a better company, be more effective, be more efficient, perform better. And that all supports this concept of play to win. And then the growth. How do we improve the growth, identify and produce better products for a wider patient population?
I think one of the big strengths of what you've done, which is really bringing together different constituent parts. You've got the policy and you've got the drive from the top. You've got the process, thinking very consciously about how people come forward, the process of that, them being able to do it on their terms, confidentially, anonymously, but then also making sure that there's the people-orientated, human-centric skills behind it to really bring those policy and processes to life, because if you don't have one, the rest of the system kind of falls down. So it's great to see the investment and thought that's gone into the system as a whole, as opposed to, well, we could solve this with a bit of patchwork training for managers here, or let's just get a shiny new policy, over here that's backed by the CEO. But if the building blocks or everything isn't in place, then it doesn't work.
Well, someone said to me, people buy into people. And I think if you are an employee who has whatever your issue may be, to other people it may seem like that's a really minor issue. But to you as an employee, that can be a really big deal if it's happening to you every day, or if you're experiencing it every day in the workplace. So that has the impact of you're not going to be operating to your maximum. You're not bringing your best self to work necessarily because it's on your mind. And that's going to impact your ability to deliver your role, to contribute to a team. Maybe you don't want to speak up in a meeting, right? Which is, again, comes back to the organisational justice principles about employees feeling that they're heard, they can speak up, their voice will be listened to, the company hears and takes action, and they then be part of the change of the company. And again, we're going through quite a transitional period at the moment for a number of different areas of the company. So it's really important that employees are vested into that and have a buy-in to that. And this, I think, is a really good way to allow them to feel like the company that I work for hears me, listens to me, shares feedback with me. I can see improvements of an idea that I may be raised. I can see where the company's starting to progress and shift, and the culture is becoming more open and less autocratic.
So, I mean, it's amazing to see the commitment that you've got from high up in the organisation. Your passion for this really comes across. If we fast forward a year from now, 5 years from now, what does success look like for you? I mean, there's obviously things like the reduction in the number of investigations and things like that, but beyond that, what does success look like?
It's a really good question. I think, for me personally, I think the partnership we've had with CEDR has given us a strong foundation to really build on it. That was the real thing that I said, look, if we're going to do this, let's do it properly. Let's not play at it. Let's not just put a couple of people in and call them Ombuds and just see how it goes. We could, and a company this size, suddenly have multiple different inquiries coming in, and we want to manage those, because if you contact a new service like the Ombuds and don't hear anything for 3 weeks, you can think, well, what a waste of time that was. I've called up, I haven't had anything back, no one's contacted me.
Speak up, being heard.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Walk the walk, talk the talk. So that's why we chose 20 to start with, because we thought that gives us the bandwidth to be able to manage volume if it starts to happen. And I think if you fast forward 5 years' time, I would like to think that the Ombuds is acknowledged and understood by the company, everyone in the company. If you said, how do I contact the Ombuds? People go, I know where to go for the Ombuds. I understand what they do. I hope we've had many, many employees come through the service and feel like, yes, that was a really worthwhile experience. I think there's going to be an ongoing training for the Ombuds team themselves, because they will become more experienced, and we can share that amongst the team. There'll be some new people come and join as Ombuds, I'm sure. It may grow, depending on what happens. But I think from a cultural perspective, like I said earlier, all the feedback is this is needed in the company. We have a lot of issues that are heard by P&C, or HR, people and culture, or human resources, or ethics and business integrity managers. I've got, what do I do? And they might even be the person coming to the Ombuds and saying, look, I've got a problem or a challenge with this employee. Can you help me manage this out? It's not all about employees saying, I have a problem with management or this. It's for everybody in the company. Yeah. It doesn't matter whether you're the CEO or someone working on the shop floor in one of our manufacturing sites. The service is there for everybody. And I think if we could get to a place where the majority of the population in Sanofi, when you say Ombuds, they go, oh, yeah, I know that is. Yeah. I know someone has used it, or I've used it. I've heard about it. It's supposed to be really good. And that will help when we start to share some of the insights that we gain. So from a data perspective, you have to be able to measure it, to manage it, and understand it. So we're capturing the topics that people are raising. We're capturing any kind of themes. We're completely anonymizing anything, because that's the whole concept of the Ombuds. It's confidential. So we would report out to management or to the business, depending on who we were talking to, about themes, topics, trends, numbers. So if we had a particular pattern of a certain type of issue in a place, we would be able to identify it quite quickly looking at our data, and be able to then, along with the Ombuds themselves, but hopefully work maybe on a slightly bigger scale to try and reduce that problem going forward. Yeah. So that's, again, part of what we're trying to do here, is reduce the number of conflicts that happen, because people feel more empowered to manage things themselves, even if it's with advice from the Ombuds. And that, again, will make for a more positive environment for people to come to work and operate in.
And I know that you and your team, and more broadly the company, take great pride in being one of the first, if not the first, French company to develop this internal Ombuds service. And I think there's also a great deal of bravery in acknowledging, like every organisation, that there are conflicts and challenges, but also opportunities to do something better, but not bury the head in the sand and pretend that the issues will go away, or let them fester and bubble up. But you're actually taking a proactive approach to engage with these, as you say, to mitigate against escalated disputes, but also to realise and leverage the opportunity that comes through better dialogue, engagement with your employees. So yeah, I think it's hats off and all credit to you guys for embracing that opportunity and embarking on a journey, because I imagine it's not been easy at all times, It
hasn't, I'm not going to lie. Like anything in a big organisation, there's a lot of negotiation needed. There's a lot of awareness to raise to people so they understand it, and that was part of the position we were in. We had the idea, the concept. We presented to the executive committee, had a great backing from them, and like I said, the CEO being part of that, Paul Hudson being the head of the executive committee. So knowing that you had that level of buy-in to support a project like this at the scale that we were doing it, meant that you didn't feel like you were kind of treading water. We could actually take this forward, and I think from start to finish, from kind of ideation to delivery was probably 8 months, maybe 8-9 months, which I think, realising now, is a fairly quick process to be live. So I think, we're definitely proud of it. And again, there are other companies that have similar processes. Like I said, I think we're the first French one to have it at this scale. And I think to be able to say to people, having this discussion with you, but we've been on LinkedIn, and I've been asked to speak about it in a couple of other areas under the Organisational Justice banner, if you want, is a real interesting moment, because people suddenly start to go, we have conflict too. Yeah. Well, we're no different than any other company. No. We're 90,000 people, 92,000 people. There is going to be problems. whichever way you look, however big or small they might be. Some needed to be managed in a more formal way, you know.
Yeah, you never get away from that.
You can't, but a lot of it can be just down to better communication.
Especially in a diverse global company.
Exactly.
Cultural clashes.
Yeah. Better listening and hearing. Because you can listen, but you're actually hearing. And I think that's where the Ombuds offer that really, that additional step in, I'm not here to necessarily fix it, but I just listen. And I know this because I saw the feedback from the first 4 or 5 inquiries. And we had a team call with them. We have a catch up once every month. And they said, you know, the first thing people said was, I'm so glad I've got someone to listen to me. And that, I think, was really impactful. Because even though they couldn't fix it, they might not be able to fix the problem. That person fundamentally went away thinking, I feel much better now because someone's listened to me. They've given me options. They've said they can't fix it necessarily, but they can work with me to improve the situation or work in other ways.
Empowering them, yeah.
Exactly. You know, we can't fix everything, but we can help and work with you and empower you. Because that's what you want, right? You want employees who feel, I can raise an idea without being shouted down. I can challenge a way of working without being targeted as being a troublemaker or someone who makes a lot of noise. You know, because we have an environment now where managers, leaders, co-workers understand the benefit of having people who come to work confident that they can speak up on any topic it is.
Yeah, I think that's, you know, gets to the heart of a misconception that you see a lot around psychological safety and other things. It's about not trying to rock the boat or cause conflict or issues. You know, it's some people think it's about being sort of comfortable and cozy all the time, and it's really not, because you only make progress or innovate or, you know, get better at things if you're willing to, you know, step into those unchallenging situations, but do it in a constructive, productive way, and not in a way that, you know, is destructive.
Exactly, and I think how do you do that, right? You have to educate people. You have to raise the awareness of people, and you know, this year has been a challenge, right? 2024. Sanofi's been hugely involved in the Olympics, and there's been a massive amount of publicity from the company on what that entails. And then right in the middle of that, 1st of July, we're launching this service. So amongst all the other things that are happening, it was a challenge to, one, get it on the calendar, but we'd said, no, we're ready to go now. The team are ready. Let's launch. We've got 20 of them, plus we've got other additional kind of champions of ethics and business integrity in the company who are spreading the word. We're using LinkedIn, we're working with you guys, we've created some video content internally and externally to really kind of let people in the company, not just looking at our internal portals and our internal communication, but externally, this is something the company now has. You know, do other companies have it? Some do, some don't, but we do. So why don't we use this service? Let's understand what it's about. And if I have a problem, maybe not today, maybe not next month, might be not till next year, but I know where to go when I need that advice or that guidance.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to wrap things up, because it's been a great conversation, for people thinking about embarking on something like this, I know you said a lot of companies have things similar, some don't. What would be sort of your bits of advice that you've learned from this process, you know, sort of 8-9 months ago to present, that you would give to them? For people sort of
I'm not going to lie. When I wind back 10 months, however long ago it was, and someone said Ombuds, I was like, okay, my previous company had it listed as somewhere you could go to talk to people, but what exactly do they do? And you hear like financial ombudsman and other ombudsmen in the general kind of public, but I've never had to use the service of one. So again, a new experience for me. So I think understanding and educating yourself, well, if we're going to do this, what are we trying to achieve? What are our goals here? To just resolve lots of minor problems, to prevent them becoming worse, or do we want to have employees who feel like, yes, we have services in the company where I can go to, trusted, reliable, informal, confidential. So I think you need to understand what you're trying to achieve, because you've got to try and set yourself up for success. And I think that's where we've been really, really fortunate with the support and the guidance and the buy-in we've had from our executives. Our Chief Compliance Officer, Julian Duran, has been right 100% behind this from the start, which again is a huge, huge help, because you start to build something that you know there will be challenges, but you can discuss them, you've got the support, you can find solutions to get there. And the biggest thing for me was engaging the right partner, and CEDR was the right partner. We looked at, you know, just did I think like a Google search on like, you know, mediation companies, but I'd already had the connection with Steve. We looked at it. There's some really good information that we were given, you have on your website, but also by talking to the team. And then we sat down. Estelle, who's our Ombuds lead, came with me to here, to London. Sat down with Steve, with Andy, with Susan, and discussed, okay, what is this going to look like? Before we'd even started the job application process. So building the blocks of success were really important, and CEDR brought the expertise, the understanding, the insights from other companies. This worked well, this didn't work well, and it's quite unique because I'm not even sure I don't think they've done anything like this in another organisation. So it was a first for them, a first for us, but the partnership, the lines of communication, the ability to feel comfortable to say to Andy, and it happened mid-training, we need to just shift this slightly just because I think the group aren't quite ready for this next bit, so can we adjust it? Bang, agile, done. And that afternoon, for me, I think it was the first day of the training, was really pivotal in the rest of the training for those 2 and the 4 day, the 2 modules. Because the group suddenly, if we'd put them into what was being planned, I think it would have been too soon for the group. So we adjusted it, Andy and Felicity adjusted it with Tracy, delivered a slightly different session, but man, that had such an impact on the second and third days. And you could literally see the penny drop with the group, and they go, yes. And that night when we went to have dinner, they were like, fantastic. Oh, this is way bigger than I thought. They were so energized, and they still are. You know, we have groups, so massively reliant on the support we had through CEDR at the start, without a doubt.
Well, fantastic. Dan, it's been great to speak to you today. It's great to hear about the success you've had already. I'm sure you've got great success to come, and we look forward to hopefully the partnership between CEDR and Sanofi continuing. And yeah, it's a fantastic journey and a lot of great things to come.
Excellent. Thanks very much for inviting me. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.